Hey everyone, my name is Lamar. This is the Healthcare Digital Marketing Podcast. I have Brittany. Brittany has been in the lending space for doctors for 15 years, I believe.
Gosh, for
Um,
longer than we should admit, that's for sure.
and you've also, you just recently moved to Charlotte, and we'll open up and get some background on kind of where you are, you're coming from, and your vision. But I think you and I met through just the connections here in Charlotte, right? A dental expert resource connected us together, and then we just hit it off, right? Like your kids are in sports, my kids are in sports, and we're both working together to tackle on this dental space and medical space that we love to be in. But yeah, I would just love for you to open up to the audience, just give a little bit of background on who you are and where you're from.
Yeah, I'm Brittany Fountain. I live just south of Charlotte. I'm technically in South Carolina, so I'm in Fort Mill, South Carolina. But I just moved to the area over the summer. I'm from Wilmington, North Carolina, and that's where I've spent the past 10 years. And yes, we both work in the dental community, and it is very big, and there's tons of opportunity. I say this to everyone. I'm like, there's tons of opportunity for everyone in this space, but it is the smallest world that you will ever be in.
Oh yeah.
And that's exactly how you and I connected. So small dental world, everybody knows everybody. And so when I moved out to the Charlotte area, you and I connected. We're both working parents. We have kids in sports. We serve the dental community.
Yep.
So it really made sense. And ever since then, I've really plugged in with the area, of course, with the territory that I serve. So I cover North and South Carolina for a bank that's based out of Columbus, Ohio. So Huntington Bank has recently come to the Carolinas market, and I am practice finance for all things with the Carolinas. So I do practice financing, which is financing directly for the practice owners. So whether they want to do a startup or an acquisition, an expansion, I'm doing that specifically for the dental and medical community of the Carolinas. So since being back in the space since June, I've met lots of folks, and you included. And so when you asked to come in and do this, I was an easy yes, the easiest yes of my week. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for your energy and just your passion towards this this space and helping people. I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned about you. So you mentioned, coming back to banking. So where did you
Mhm.
go? Talk to us about that, and then why did you decide to come back?
It's funny. So my mom was a banker. So she was a banker with First Citizens for 25 years before she
Wow.
retired. And the bulk of her business was dental medical.
Mm.
So she was a commercial lender, but dental medical was a big focus for her. And I remember growing up thinking, I do not want to do this. Anything but. And she was so involved in our community, and folks would stop us in the grocery store and at church. And, we couldn't do anything without somebody coming over and asking my mom banking advice. And growing up, especially as a moody adolescent, I was like, this is not for me. Like, I'm not going to be doing this.
Right.
But just like life would have it, in 2014, I ended up joining a bank in Wilmington, North Carolina called Live Oak Bank.
Yep.
And my background to that point was mainly sales of sorts. So I worked for a medical company, a technology company. I had done some work with credit analysis for a while. And so it was sort of a natural fit to go and work with this bank because they were industry specific. They still are. So Live Oak Bank is an SBA specific lender. They've branched out and they start doing other things now. But if you are in any of the industries that you serve or that they serve, like who Live Oak is. And it was great. So I did that for maybe 7 years before finally closing that chapter and saying, you know what, like I don't think I want to be a banker. I said this growing up. I don't want to do this what my mom did. And I've done this now for 7 years. Like we need to close this up and see what's next. So when I left, I very quickly started consulting, just sort of organically working with folks who reached out to me to say, hey, you've worked with small businesses for a long time. Can you look at stuff for us? Sure, why not? I'm happy to help. I love to help people. I mean, that's really the crux of what I do is, how can I help people get to where they want to be? And for this modality. It just happens to be banking. But as a consultant, that took off for about 2.5 years until Huntington reached out and said, "Hey, we're building out for the Carolinas. Are you interested?" And again, I was like, I don't know. I don't think I want to be a banker.
Yeah. It's your calling, it sounds like.
I know. I was like, it's a boomerang. Like it just pulls you back. And I thought, you know, I don't know if I want to be a banker, but I know I love this area. I know I love the Carolinas. It's where I'm from. So like I have a heart for the people here and for the economy and just for all the things that goes into these states being the powerhouses that they are.
Right.
And then I really loved the team at Huntington Bank. So practice finance started with them in 2018, 2019. So it's still fairly like a young team. You know, the bank itself has been established for 150 years, but this team is still very much startup, scrappy, creative. How can we get in there? How can we make it work? You know, everything is, how can we do this? And that energy just really pulled me back in.
That's
And so when the opportunity came up, I was like, well, it looks like
here we
we're
go.
back.
Yep, here we go.
And honestly, I mean, there's a lot of worse decisions we could make. So coming back into banking has been a lot of fun. But yes, it's the boomerang effect. I'm back. So,
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, no, thank you for sharing that. So, but what makes them different? Like when you think about Huntington, what makes them different from other banks?
yeah, like I said, I mean, the bank itself is old, right? 150 years. That's something to hang your hat on. That's a lot. A lot of banks don't make it that long. But this team is really made up of folks who have come from different banks, different backgrounds. You know, when I say this team, I mean practice finance. So these are the people who are doing dental, medical. We have some veterinary specific lenders in here now.
Yeah.
And these are good people who know banking, who know these industries, who are really focused on how can we get this done and how can we do this in a way that we don't see it otherwise.
Yeah.
Because they've been around, they've seen the way that other shops are doing things, and they've seen like the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. And there's
Right.
just such a spirit of, it's very entrepreneurial, very startup in nature, which is great because I think that puts us in a really unique alignment with these small business owners. Um, and it just gives us a perspective that is a little fresh. It's a little unique from what you see elsewhere. And I think when I look back at my personal history of like when I've been happiest with work, when I've been most fulfilled, not necessarily when it's been easiest, because none of this is easy, but
Not
it's
at all.
always been, sort of like that startup mentality of, let's get in there. Let's not be fat and happy, right? Like, how are we really starting? How can we get in and do something unique and meaningful? And that's really the energy that I felt with Huntington. And all of that, I mean, all of that I just said just boils down to like, it's the people. It's good people who want to do good things and make a difference. And I think that's really important always, but especially today.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, I think when you're a smaller company, you're just the hustle is different. Like you
Mm,
really want to, every relationship matters. It's not
that's
just
right.
a number or a pin in the haystack. It's it's the relationships and the people that make a difference. And so no, you're absolutely right. And I guess when you think about like, doctors, right, and medical practitioners, do you see that it's important for them if they're thinking about lending, right? Because there's so many banks out here. There's so many,
Yeah.
banks that provide, funds to a medical practice, but there's a difference, right? Where if they have like like a practice financing division, I think that's a
Hmm.
different setup and scenario for that doctor. Why is it important for them to work with a bank like Huntington to, be specialized in the kind of the practice financing side?
Yeah. I think it's so important, to your point, there's 1,000 banks out there, and 1,000 banks would love to provide financing for these folks.
Yeah.
Um, when you work with a team that is specific to your industry, you start to find that they're willing to look at the nuances of what it actually means to be a business owner in that space. Um, there are certain things that can provide you blanket instructions, formats, frameworks based on what it is, but to really be, ingrained into an industry is to know that there are certain expectations that we can have across the board, but
Right.
it's to also know that nuance exists and that no two businesses are exactly alike. And so when you have a team that's focused on an industry with a specific group of people who's been able to weather the cyclicalities and the seasons that come with this kind of world, then you find people that are willing to be a little bit more creative because you can be more creative because you know it, right?
Yep.
It's sort of like, coaching a kid, right? You can have a format for, a workout.
Yeah.
But when you actually know this kid in this sport, then you can start to be a little more creative and nuanced in what you do and how it's going to be impactful and how it's really going to shape the long-term vision
Yep.
of what this business owner, what this child, what this person that I'm focused on is doing. And so I think anytime somebody in the dental medical space can work with a bank that has a division that is, just lasered in on what they do and the changes that they're experiencing, whether it's with coding, with marketing,
Right.
with the growth of their community. I mean, that they're really going to find unique solutions that help them in a way that they wouldn't have otherwise. So if it's available and it is for our folks, like take advantage.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think too, because we're on the marketing side for medical practitioners, right? And so being able to, have banks that are creative where it's like they're starting a practice or, they're, opening up a new location, financing them on the front end, in their budgeting on the marketing side where they don't have to come out of pocket. And it's just like
That's right.
start them off on the right foot, not
That's right.
for debt on top of
Yeah. If you think about budgeting for a business and you might say, well, you need this amount for working capital and this amount for, leasehold improvements.
yeah,
Well, we also know, to your point, for a dental practice, like we need to consider what does IT needs look like? What do your technology needs look like? What does your marketing needs look like? What is it, your outdoor signage? Like, do you guys know how much a lit sign outside of your building it costs?
yeah.
Get with a partner who knows what it does and knows what that means and who can look at this in a holistic way to
Right.
say we don't want to just give you enough to be in the building, we want to give you enough money and enough flexibility to be fully operational.
That's
And to
good.
be fully operational, we know that there are other areas that need to be addressed and capitalized in
Yep.
order to set you up for success.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
That's awesome. Yeah. And then I guess like because I mean the elections are over. We're
mm,
finally glad we got past that, right? And so
that's right.
we've seen rates go up and down. Are you seeing any other challenges, in the lending space? Like, are there big obstacles that you're facing currently?
Yeah, it's funny. So the election, I think, is more impactful for the borrowers than it is for banks that are in, again, practice finance, practice solution specific, folks who are dental and medical specific. Just because we do have such a good pulse on this industry, we do have such a good pulse on like the seasonality, the cyclicalities of it. And elections, big elections happen every 4 years. And we know that we've lived that, we've breathed that, like we are prepared for that as an organization. So I think that's more impactful for the borrowers than it would be for us. In terms of rates, rates have been a big discussion in the banking world over the past few years. There's a lot of attention that goes to Wall Street Journal Prime. And that's a rate index that the feds monitor very closely. And you see a lot of that in the news when it comes to inflation talks and
Yeah.
mortgage rates and things like that. But again, because we are unique and we are a very niche lender for our group, those impacts do not necessarily directly impact what we're doing. So for a rate example, prime is 8%. It's
Yeah.
coming down. But our rates are not indicated. We're not dictated by prime. So we work off of like a 10-year treasury. And that's different. And that's a whole nother conversation. It's a very nuanced conversation that's specific for our group, because that's something that we can follow based on this industry and what we know of it to be, through whether it's through recessions or inflations or any outside factors of elections, so on and so forth. So, from a banking standpoint, the challenges that exist are just going to be more specific to who's doing the project, where they're doing a project, all of those sorts of very unique factors to the individual, rather than like a nationwide impact that we see otherwise. I mean, of course, we hate to say it, but everybody says it, COVID's the outlier there, so
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
barred the fact that we have another pandemic, and knock on all the wood you can find,
Oh, knocking on wood right now.
That's right. That's right. So, I mean, we should be fine.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And then I guess on the flip side of that, what are the biggest opportunities that you see from a lending
Oh
standpoint?
gosh. I mean, specific for dental, I think there's such a huge opportunity for folks who are coming out of school or coming out of, a few years of associateship, where they can open up their own practice, and doing so in areas that are not probably thought of as like a traditional like opportunity. So for dentists in North and South Carolina, there's a huge opportunity for folks to step into a rural market. So an area that was maybe previously a little underserved, maybe something that's proximal to a military base. Military is really important. That gives a big opportunity to these folks. I think there's sometimes a holdup of, can I do a startup? And, I don't have family money. Is that even an opportunity for me? It is an opportunity. And it's actually a great opportunity when you can identify an area that has a need. Oh boy, I think I lost you. Are you there?
Yeah, I have no idea what happened. It
I
just,
know I lost you.
yeah, just like flashed, and then just that's the first time that it just kind of disappeared, and then
No.
it so
Um,
it'll be a blooper that we can take
I
out.
know. I was like, cut it out, don't cut it out, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, no, I mean, just in terms of opportunity. So I think there's a big opportunity for folks who are coming out of school or coming out of their associateship. Maybe they've been with somebody for 2 years, to do a startup. Doing that in an area that's rural, something that's a little unexpected. A lot of people think, I'm in Charlotte, I want to work in Charlotte. How about you work 20 miles west of Charlotte,
Oh
and
yeah.
you are going to be in an area where nobody's there. So your competition is low, the need is high, and you can make it whatever you want.
Yep.
I promise you can be in a car for 30 minutes each way, and you'll be in a car 30 minutes each way, whether you're working in Uptown or you're working, west of Gastonia. So you might as well just go ahead and take advantage of that. I think another opportunity is folks who are buying another practice of like retiring doctors. There's a lot of doctors who pushed through COVID, came back, built their practice back up, and now they're just like, I'm done. Like
Yep.
that's a huge opportunity to step in for folks to come in and to really revamp something that's sort of established. So you have a patient base that's already there, you have a
Right.
cash flow that's already happening, but then you can bring in somebody like you and say, how can I start to market this in a way that's really going to be unique for me taking over as the new owner operator.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
so I think opportunities exist everywhere. It's just how willing people are to be to like think outside of maybe like what their, you know, what their ideal was, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's interesting because I think that's, yeah. Because like in Charlotte, right? Like everybody wants to be in the heart of Charlotte, but
oh my gosh.
it's like, or South End or wherever. And it's just like, there's so many dentists around you.
That's right.
You're not going to be as profitable. You
That's
just
right.
at a high level. So go to a more rural town, and
Hmm.
to your point, you're going to be smiling driving 30 minutes because your production is high.
That's right. That's right. I
So,
think too, and some of like the bigger conversations to have, like, you know, like, and you see this, you know, like it's important to talk about, you know, what do you want your marketing to look like? What kind of traffic do you want to bring in to your website? You know, what would you want your Google reviews to say?
yep,
It's equally important to start having conversations with folks about like, what do you imagine your life looking like? What's important to you? You
yeah,
know, what goals are you working towards? Like, are you working, you know, is your goal to have a family? Is your goal to, you know, have land? Like, is your goal to travel often? Like, you know, we need to talk about things beyond the practice, beyond the project, beyond the loan, because that is just like a means to an end, you know, like what's most important to you, you know, and how are we actually driving towards making your dream come true? And maybe your dream is just putting your kid through college. Great. Let's talk
yeah,
about it. Like
yep.
this is how we can get there. I think those are really important conversations to have.
Yeah, I think that's so important because then if you don't have those conversations, you become a slave to to the business that you created.
Right.
It's just like you didn't want to create a glorified job,
Yeah.
to create financial freedom, personal freedom and impact your communities versus just grinding every single day without being able to enjoy the fruit of your labor. So
That's
um,
right.
I'm right there with you on that. And I think it's so like this, man, this episode was so impactful. Just not even from just a lending standpoint, but just your passion, your ability to build relationships and just to understand like beyond, buying a practice, like
Yeah.
your goals, your vision to help you really enjoy, what you do. And so I think that's so important, especially as doctors are transitioning into, acquiring practices going into 2025. But if someone was like, hey, like, how could I get in touch with Brittany? Or do you only service certain areas? Like, what's I guess are there any restrictions of, working with you?
Yeah. So Huntington works nationwide.
Okay.
I am for the Carolinas. So my priority is North Carolina, South Carolina. We have folks who cover all different territories. However, like I said before, you know, it's a small team. You know, we're very tight knit. We work very well together, but also cross functionally across our organization. That if you have questions, reach out. You can call, text, email me. I'll give you all my contact information so you can put it out there in the show notes. Um, but you know, you can find me on LinkedIn. My name's Brittany Fountain. I'm never hard to find. I'm a middle child, so that's, you know, it just checks on all the areas. It's like, look at me, I'm
Yep.
here.
You need a lot
Um,
of love.
but yeah, I mean, you know, I work with folks who are doing loans with us directly. I talk with people who are working with other lenders, you know, and not in a way to pull them away, but just to be a sounding board. To your point, it's, you know, and this is takes it full circle back to the beginning of our conversation, is that this community is so big and
Yep.
it is also so small. And it's so important that folks are able to find people that they trust who can build a team of industry specific experts and professionals around them. And
Yep.
sometimes that means that the business quote unquote comes to me. And sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
But to still be involved in the conversation, number one, is an honor, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's always an honor that somebody would trust you enough to have that conversation.
Right.
But two, like, a rising tide lift all ships. Like,
I agree with you.
we have to do this well. We have to do this together. We have to do it with integrity. And I'm happy to do that no matter where somebody is in this journey. So Brittany Fountain, find me on LinkedIn. You can email me, brittany.fountain@huntington.com. I am embarrassingly easy to find. So just throw it into Google. You'll figure it out.
Yep. And we'll include everything in the show notes as well. And Brittany, we can't thank you enough for just sharing your knowledge and your industry expertise. I'm Lamar with the Healthcare Digital Marketing Podcast, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.